Hi, today I wanted to talk about The Night of the Comet. Night of the Comet is a book that was funded through a Kickstarter campaign written by Thompson and drawn by Attila Schwanz. And I really enjoy this book. If you wanted a brief summary about what this book was about, you could say it's about the Yakuza hiring a notorious hitman to kill the head of an international security firm. But it's much more than that. So just wanted to dig into this book a little bit because I found this interesting and unique. So it starts off with the Yakuza boss talking to this killer. And this killer is known as very effective, and he always eats the heart of his victims. And even the Yakuza boss is like disgusted at hiring him, but he's so desperate to see this head of the international security firm be assassinated that they'll resort to hiring him. And the killer, that's what I'm going to refer to him as, the killer talks about what he's going to do. You have this emphasis on spiders, and then he's like, and then he's just laughing. And it's like a cold open. It sets up the rest of the story. So the next scene you have is at the seaside mansion with an observatory. And this older gentleman, who's the head of the international security firm, who I'm going to call the Samurai, he's talking to his wife, and he's telling her, I've been waiting for 40 years for the night of the comet to return. And at that point, I'm going to do what I haven't been able to do for 40 years. He's going to kill himself. He's going to commit ritual suicide, because the comet in his mind symbolizes opening the doorway between life and death, and he wants to see his ex-wife again. Oh, he's here thinking about her, thinking about their past a little bit. And there's interesting use of the panels where the samurai walks downstairs these floors and enters this room. And that room is a whole room full of monitors, security monitors everywhere, and he's just talking out loud. And he's like, I'm so tired. And then you see the killer appear. The samurai, you can tell, senses him. The killer shoots, and then the samurai is nowhere to be found, but the killer finds blood. And he's like, it's like, okay. He's like, I'm gonna get you. He's like, it's like a game to him. So now you have this interesting set of panel use where he's climbing up, and he's going up, and he's going up to the observatory, and he sees the portrait. And he's sitting here, and he's looking for the samurai. Now the samurai, with his sword, injures the killer. So the killer says, be careful. Each swipe of your sword only releases the toxic blood of my demon ancestors. That brings with it the kind of death, the kind of death and worse horrors one could ever imagine. And the samurai says, look, you've been one of many people that have tried to kill me. I've killed them all. You're not going to kill me. So you think that he's smack talking, and he's telling them, hey, listen, man, you're going to die. So they're talking, and they realize, and they're saying, hey, listen, we're both injured. And they do this waiting game, and they play this child's game that you'll see the relevance of this game later. And I love the use of this art, and I want to talk for a minute about it, because Attila uses this mixed media approach where each page has a different type of media and different type of approach depending on what is going on this page. So here you are, you're playing this child's game, and the reason I'm mentioning the art is that playing, and then and then there's a flashback. I mean, they're playing and they're rolling the dice. I mean, they're rolling, not so much dice, but they're rolling a cup with these pieces that come out. And they're just kind of like waiting each other out to see like who'll draw first or who'll blink first. And then all of a sudden, the focus is on the portrait of his ex-wife. And then you have a flashback. And I love the use of this art because this is a kinder, peaceful time. It's a nicer time. So everything is drawn like in colored pencil for the most part. And there's a lot of dialogue that goes on here, but basically him and his wife are having a discussion on what they think about the comet. This is 40 years ago, and that comet that comes every 40 years is about to appear, and she's talking about how her parents were born both on the same night of the comet in different parts of Japan, but they start having a philosophical discussion. And she tells them, look, the comet to me opens the door between life and death, but life and death are an illusion. She says, it's like the flower that blooms in the spring, thrives in the summer, and then in the winter it dies, but then it comes back again. And that's her view of life. And they're just having this conversation together, a philosophical one, like couples will do. And he's telling her his view of life and what he thinks. And this is the comet as it approaches. So she's sipping wine, and all of a sudden something happens. She goes, I don't feel right at all. And she dies. And there's nothing nefarious to this. No one killed her. It's not a vengeance story. This is one of those, it's maybe a plot vehicle, but it's also one of those ironies of life where sometimes bad things just happen. And they just happen. And he lifts her and he takes her to the observatory that he built, and he takes her there. So you realize that he's been waiting 40 years since that time for the comet to return. Then you return in present day, where they're still talking, waiting for the other one to blink, the other one to die. And then the killer gets impatient and just starts out again with a knife. And they fight back and forth. He stabs him with a samurai sword. He kills him. And then the samurai says, I've cut you down like weeds. There's only one outcome. It is always the same. And then she just decapitates him. And I've seen this on the PDF where it looks larger, and it's just amazing. And he just decapitates him. So you think, okay, he's dead. The head bounces forward. He's exhausted. And then all of a sudden, he has this look of face. He goes, huh? And then the head says, you're not paying attention. I thought I made myself clear. And you see all these spiders and blood coming out. You see how this spider creature come out of his mouth. And you realize that all this talk about spiders, like in the first page here, there's a spider dangling. And then later on, you see spider tattoos. There's this imagery of spiders. You realize that was really just foreshadowing. And then the scene earlier where the demon, I'm going to call him the demon, the killer, tells him that each swipe of your sword only releases the toxic blood of my demon ancestors. You realize that he just wasn't talking smack, that he really does have demon ancestors, and he is some other type of demon or creature. And that's kind of like the twist where you realize, oh, you just thought he was talking smack this whole time, but no, he really is. That's why he eats hearts. That's why he's someone that's feared even higher, because he really is either a host or possessed by these, I'm going to say, demon ancestors. And at this point, the samurai just says, enough, and just slices through him with his sword. And a little interesting touch, you can tell that this is not a normal human being creature, because the sword is melted by cutting through him. So that blood or his guts are toxic. You can see that he's kind of greenish, covered in that gruel. You can tell that he's suffering. And then he says, after this, says, my love, a killer crept into our home. I defeated it. Now the gateway is open. And he drops this melted sword. And he says, now I know there's only one direction to go. And he stumbles up and he falls, but he goes to the observatory and he sees the comet approach. It's returned after 40 years. And the last panel is him just, as he's dying, looking at the comet. And you realize that the only thing that's kept him alive for these 40 years, and the reason why he's been able to kill everyone, it isn't because he's this master swordsman, although I guess he is. It's because he's wanted to stay alive for her. that the only thing that gave his life any meaning was to live another 40 years, to wait for the comet to return so he could die when the comet was there, when the gateway between life and death are open, so he could be reunited with her. That he loved her so much that the only thing that kept him going and made him defeat all these threats is her. And the book ends. And it's a really interesting story. And I will say that this book is a little smaller than a regular comic book size, although the printing and the hardcover and the binding, everything is top notch. Jonathan mentioned that he's going to run a Kickstarter. He's thinking about pretty confirmed that he will in a couple of months, in June sometime, where they're going to print a European hardcover edition, sized edition of this. And if he does, that's the way I would go. You can follow Jonathan on Space Station Z, all one word, on Instagram. He's very good at promoting his work. He's not shy about it, and that's the right way to be. I think that a large style, this kind of art benefits from a larger canvas, a larger book page. I think there's some art styles, like most manga and some other styles, that you can do in a smaller page and you're not going to lose much. But with all this detail and all this different type of media and all these colors and all this work, to me, the bigger the book, the better it is for this type of work. I really enjoy this work. It's really different. It's great. It's like a Yakuza movie. It's a love story. It's a horror story. It's a story of what will a man do, or how will he will himself to survive in order just so he could see the love of his life once more. Just great work. So again, it's called He's the Target, but the book is Night of the Comet by Jonathan Thompson, Attila Schwanz. You can find them both on Instagram. And as I said, in June, they're going to do a Kickstarter for a European-sized hardcover of this book. And I know it's going to be released as a trade paperback from Source Point Press. So if you just want to get a trade paperback version of it, that's cool. But for me, with this kind of work, bigger is better. There were two covers. This is cover B. I like this one, although cover 1 was really cool too. And that's it. Again, Jonathan is a good writer. He's up and coming. And Attila has only been doing comics for a couple of years, I think. And he's got a really unique, interesting, very cool approach. And I'm looking forward to more work from the both of them. Thanks.